Welcome back into the Rounding Third podcast. We got the whole gang back together. I'm Nick. We got Harrison and Sean. How we doing, boys?
Good. How we doing, boys?
Oh, fellas. Good. Good to see you.
Good. Come talk baseball with us instead of watching the Cowboys choke another playoff game. So,
yeah.
Amen.
Although, real quick, would you rather see Tom Brady win another playoff game or see the Cowboys win a game?
Yes.
No. I want Tom. I want Tom Brady more now than when he was a Patriot. If he wins this year, that means he's win a Super Bowl every other year since he was 35 years old. That's crazy.
That is pretty nuts.
Yeah, I'm like the jaded ex-girlfriend. I want to see him lose by like 50-9, so I just can be done hearing about him.
No. Well, he ain't.
All right. Anyways, make sure you follow and like us on Facebook. You can subscribe on YouTube, and you can now follow us on Twitch. This is our debut on Twitch tonight, so you can follow us on those three platforms. As of now, we are looking to expand further as we go on here. So, leading off tonight, latest hot stove, Carlos Correa saga is finally over. He signs for 6 years, $200 million back with the Twins. Okay, he goes to the Giants, he goes to the Mets, and then he comes back to the ex-girlfriend, was like, hey, I want you back. I've never been so happier. Can I just come here and cuddle up with you and pretend I didn't run out on you for a couple months there?
Yeah. This has been the weirdest saga I think any of us have ever witnessed.
I'm shocked. Yeah. I saw a thing today from Boris. It said, Boris said, I don't understand the Mets. The Mets knew what the Giants had. The Mets knew what, what San Francisco's issues were. They knew that. Why would they send the... And I think it was the same thing that we've been saying. I think the Mets were worried about, and the Giants, rightfully so. If you have some issue with this ankle, 12 years, that's a lot of years.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of years. And I think the Twins were smart to scoop in with not a 2-year deal, but hey, we'll give you half of that. 6 years. Now, I have no, do we know what the opt-outs are?
I think he has the option to have, is it a 10-year deal, I think?
Yeah, he can opt into more years.
Yeah.
No, so there's actually to get into this contract. What's interesting about it is that it's 6 years, $200 million on the surface.
Yep. Right.
And then there are vesting options built into the deal based on plate appearances. So if he hits certain plate appearance thresholds, years 7, 8, 9, and 10 get added on at significantly lower annual values. But this is actually a 10-year deal worth almost $300 million, little under $300 million, based on plate appearances. So what the Twins did is they solved for the problem by giving him more money in the first 6 years, then making him earn the remaining 4 years by staying on the field. Whereas it didn't seem like anybody else could figure that out.
So I was just going to say, this makes me happy because this is what we had talked about for the past 2 weeks. You have to make him earn the back end of the contract, and they figured out a way to do it. That is fantastic. Go Twins. Yeah. That is fantastic. That makes me so happy. I as a Mets, as a Mets fan, I wish he was in New York, but goddamn, go Twins. That was such a great work. They saw an opportunity. They got together as a front office, as an ownership group. They figured out what they wanted. This guy's going to play shortstop for them. He's not going to play third base like he was in New York. He's going to go back to Minnesota. He's going to play shortstop. That's a good team.
Yeah.
That's a good baseball team.
Yeah.
That's good for them. Good for them. I'm happy for them.
I struggle to see Minnesota winning it all with him there, but I think they will be competitive year in, year out, and they may. There may be that. All it takes is that one season where things all click together at the right time, and you make that run for the playoffs, like the Red Sox of 2021 did, who weren't supposed to be competitive at all and went to the ALCS.
But I'll say, I think a guy like Carlos Correa being locked up for the long term, if Carlos Correa, let's say, has a good year this year, which I think we all assume he will, as long as he stays healthy, a guy like him will attract players to come to Minnesota. Now, Correa's there for 6 years plus. Now you just need one more guy. You bring one more guy in, you have hopefully Buxton stays healthy, but you have Buxton, you have Correa, and you get one more guy in. Now we're talking about a division that's not a crazy division.
Luis Arias
Right?
is a nice piece. The dude hits 341.
I know.
I mean, they got
I'm
some
not
pieces
knocking
there.
him. I'm not.
No.
But is he like?
No,
he's
I know
not,
you're not, but I'm just
knocking him,
saying.
But he's not.
The Twins are closer than we think.
They're
Like
one
they
guy
are kind
away.
of hidden.
They're one more guy away.
Mhm.
They're one more guy away.
On some pitching. Definitely need some
On
pitching.
Yes, they're one more guy away. But if you get a guy, let's say this. How about this? How about this? How about the Twins go full send? The Twins go full send. The Twins go Trevor Bauer. He's their number one.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a different story.
If you get Cy Young, Trevor Bauer, Carlos Correa, Arias, Byron Buxton stays healthy, that's a team you don't want to screw with. That's a team you don't want to screw with.
No, it's not, because it's a team that can hit for power. They can hit the gaps. They can run. They can do everything they can do everything against you. They've always lacked that truly dominant ace that they know they can lean on to stop a losing streak, to keep them in a series.
Right.
And that's been the gap. If you go get Cy Young, Trevor Bauer, or somebody else emerges in that farm system, becomes a Cy Young caliber pitcher, different story. That team is a legitimate force. And the nice thing is, the Central is terrible and has been for a long time.
Right.
And probably isn't going to get a lot better soon.
To get it right. You have a couple years to get it going. Yeah.
You don't have to win 100 games to win the Central. If you can win, if you can win, if you can do better than 500, you might win that division. It's a low bar there. Yeah. But I put a link in the chat breaking down the Correa contract. But to give an example, so this contract, it's 6 years, $200 million. He's going to earn base salaries of 32, 36, 31.5, 35, 30,500,000, 30 million. That's the 200. And then he has vesting options for year 7 at 25, year 8 at 20, year 9 at 15, and year 10 at 10. And the vesting options are based on two criteria. It's one or the other. Or I say it's one of a series. It's either 575 plate appearances, top 5 MVP, Silver Slugger, LCS MVP, World Series MVP. If he gets one of those 5, his 2029 option vests. And then it continues on down each year. Okay. And if the options don't vest, then it's a club option. So the Twins then have the right to decide if they exercise it or not. So really, after this is a 10-year contract, but years 7, 8, 9, and 10 can all be voided at any point in time.
Okay, so here's my hearing all of that. I think that's fantastic for Minnesota. I think that's genius and smart, and Carlos Correa is smart for signing it because I think it's good for both sides. If you're Boston, how do you not offer him that? Like if you're a Red Sox fan, and if you're a Red Sox employee, front office person, how quickly, honestly, do you think Marcelo Mayer is going to be ready to play?
Years.
And everything you hear, he's a legitimate player.
Oh yeah,
and he's a great. Is Marcelo Mayer going to be your guy in 3 years? Probably not.
Yeah, at the earliest, it's 3 years.
At the earliest, at the very best, we're probably looking at years 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah.
How do the Sox not go after him with a year of 4 years guaranteed, and then after similar to what Minnesota did, but a 4-year deal?
Yeah. Well, and I think
maybe they did. I don't. But
I think what we're learning is the Red Sox were prepared to give the keys to shortstop to Trevor Story until they found until his elbow basically fell apart on him 2 weeks ago, and he's under the knife. So I feel like Story to shortstop made all the sense in the world. The Red Sox are changing gears to a second baseman while this whole Carlos Correa thing's happening. Then all of a sudden Trevor Story starts throwing in late December, and his elbow's on fire, and he's got to go get surgery and miss most of next season. I feel like that 2 week window there, these last 2 weeks, have taken anything the Red Sox thought they had and kind of lit it on fire.
Yeah,
fair.
I agree.
Because now they're looking at Ellis Andrus and Harrison from Chicago, the Chicago White Sox, and they're literally scraping for guys that potentially can come play. Julio Iglesias has been rumored to be in talks with the Red Sox. They're trying to find a body right now to fill that spot in hopes they see Trevor Story next year, but even that's not a guarantee.
Crazy. Padres just came through and said that they're all in on Ohtani in 23.
Of course they are. Like, I don't know where they've
so are
gotten
the
this
Mets.
money from.
So are the Mets. The fact that the
Everybody
Mets lost off
Dude,
on Carlos
everyone's
Correa,
all in on Ohtani at the end of 23.
No,
Let's be
no.
honest.
No. I'm telling you, there's 2 or 3 teams that are, when they say all in, they mean all in.
Yep.
And Steve Cohen's one. Steve Cohen is one of them.
It's fair.
I will say, I'm not Vegas, obviously. I will put the Mets at negative money to get him next year. They lost out on Carlos Correa. He thought he had Correa. He lost him.
Yeah.
Negative money on Ohtani.
Yeah.
It's happening.
All right. Some other free agent news, kind of a feel-good story. Andrew McCutchen signs a 1-year deal with the Pittsburgh Pirates. I mean, that's pretty cool. He's just going to
Great
retire.
story.
Something.
Great
Yeah.
story.
It's really cool.
It just feels right. And what's interesting is that he actually had better offers from a couple of teams and turned them down. And the only comment he gave to the teams was, "I'm going home. Like I'm gonna finish at home." And that's always been home to him. And I think it's good to see a guy who's, maybe I can go make a little bit more money, but at this point in my career, forget it. I just want to go where I know. I want to be comfortable. I want to go out the right way. And I think it's great for him. That team's not going to be good, but there's a lot of young players on that roster. I mean, look at that lineup. That's not a team that's going to win more than 75
especially
games.
if they get rid of Brian Reynolds.
Well, yeah, then it's really
They're trying
bad.
to trade Brian. I mean, especially if they get rid of him.
You've got an incredible amount of like young talent on that team that having a guy like that around is going to be huge for. However, they're not going to win, but he doesn't care. He just wants to go back and be where he knows and where he's comfortable.
Agree.
Did you see that? I was listening to what was I listening to? XM. So it was MLB radio and XM radio. So whatever show it was, but they were saying that. God damn. Pittsburgh is looking for a Juan Soto return for Brian Reynolds. Did you hear this?
No, get out.
Now,
Get out of
listen.
here.
Love Brian
I like
Reynolds.
Brian
Come on.
I think he is a more than above average offensive player. I think Brian Reynolds is great. He is not Juan Soto.
No, my goodness, no.
He's not even Luis Castillo.
Yeah.
Because Luis Castillo
Fair.
got a 4 prospect return as well.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
You
don't think
Brian
he gets
Reynolds
4
is
prospects?
4 I don't think the
Brian
Pirates
Reynolds
have the
is-
leverage for 4 prospects.
Brian Reynolds is on his own, is a top 3 or 4 offensive center fielder. And he is up there in the top 8 defensive center fielders. Brian Reynolds is disgusting.
Yeah, I mean he's a guy
get
that's going to
that,
hit.
but
He's going to hit in the high 200s, flirt with 300, hit 25 home runs, and drive in.
He's gonna
85 to
get
90.
you 100. Oh, he's a 100 RBI guy in the right lineup. He is a 30 home run,
fair.
100 RBI guy
Yeah,
in the right lineup.
His best home run year was 27 this past year, but his average took a 40-point nosedive, and his best RBI season was 90 in 21. But yeah, I mean, fair
But
enough.
in
If
that
he's in a
lineup,
better lineup,
in the right lineup, he's
yeah,
100.
in a
he's
better
100
lineup,
RBI
maybe
guy
he's
in
a
the right
100 RBI guy. Yeah, he's probably 25 and 100.
He's a 100 RBI guy in the right lineup.
Okay. I mean, I just don't know if the Pirates are in
I'm
the
not
right
saying
position
I'm not
to-
saying he's Juan Soto, but he's a Luis Castillo guy.
Well, he's only 27, which helps. I mean, you're getting him as he goes
Yeah, I
into his
guess.
prime years.
All right. I don't know. I just don't know if the Pittsburgh Pirates are in a place to demand 4 prospects.
Agreed.
For Brian
I
Reynolds.
agree that. I agree with that.
Is he worth the
I
4
agree.
prospects? Sure, but that's not what I meant in my point. Is I don't think the Pirates have the leverage to get 4 back.
Sure.
But look at that lineup for a minute. You got O'Neill Cruz in it, who's young and raw. You got Brian Reynolds. Now you're going to add Andrew McCutchen. You've got Cabrian Hayes. You've got Carlos Santana. Like that lineup's going to be fun to watch.
Cabrian Hayes is good, but the problem with Cabrian Hayes is he can't stay healthy.
Well,
Cabrian
fair.
Hayes hasn't played a full season, even in the minors. He can't stay healthy.
Yeah.
Well,
He just gets hurt every year.
It goes back to the same thing we were saying about the Twins. If Buxton's healthy and if Correa is healthy and all these ifs, some of these you've got this incredible gap here where you've got some of these just elite guys that are, if you can get 120 games out of them, you feel really good. That would include people like Mike Trout and Carlos Correa and Byron Buxton. Then you got these other guys that are literally out there just every day, no matter what. And it makes you wonder, like, what is the difference? Like, what are they doing differently? How are they prepared differently? How are they built differently where they're actually on the field so much more often?
Mike Trout doesn't matter. He can show up and play 80 games and still hit 40
The
bombs.
dude hit 40 home runs, only played 3/4 of the
gross.
season. Like,
It's unbelievable.
I mean,
anyways, it's ridiculous.
It's just different.
People will laugh at that, but if you take a breath and think about that,
It's silly.
that's disgusting. That doesn't make
It's-
sense.
No.
He plays half a season and hits 40 homers.
He
It's
played
just-
120 games, right? He
Like, try to
he missed
digest
40
that.
something
That
games.
doesn't make
Yeah,
any sense.
Guy played 119 games, hit 40, and drove in 80. I mean, and he finished in the top 10 in the MVP voting, and he played 3/4 of the year.
Crazy.
It's
All right.
just
It
so
just doesn't
bad.
make sense, man.
How about all right? Now we're gonna get to all the free agent veterans that have been trickling in and signing here. Johnny Cueto to the Marlins. Is this a depth play for the Marlins
Yeah.
because they're gonna trade
Yeah.
some young talent
Yeah.
away? You think?
Well,
I think it's
I
I
think
think it's two things.
I think. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, I think we're gonna agree here, Sean. I think it's two things. I think it's
Probably.
a depth play if they move a young piece. I also think it's a veteran presence around those young kids. It's going to help them out.
Yep.
Yeah.
1000%. Yep.
Yep.
We agree.
All right.
Yep.
Moving
And-
on.
You know, you're talking low money, a high respected guy. Like
Yeah.
the Marlins can't lose adding him.
Yeah.
It's just like the Pirates adding Rich Hill. You know, is he going to go out there
Yes,
and win
yes,
10, 12 games
yes.
for you? Hell no, not a chance in hell.
Yes.
But being around those young players, a guy of his stature and age and experience is going to be helpful to just have him in the clubhouse.
I agree fully.
I agree.
Nelson Cruz to the Padres for a 1-year deal.
He's going to be the water boy at this point. There's not even space in that lineup for him
right.
anymore.
There's nowhere for him. There's nowhere for him.
Honestly, like when you look at that Padres roster, you've got like 11 legitimate everyday players for 9 spots. Or sorry, 8 because you got a pitcher in there. Like you have
it's gonna
so
be a
much
DH
talent.
spot, so
Yeah, you've got so much talent on that roster. I don't even know where you put them all. You're at this point. You're moving Fernando Tatis potentially to the outfield. It's the wildest thing.
I
That
think
team is
I still
loaded.
think he's getting dealt. I still think
I
he's
do
getting
too.
dealt. That's probably a
with you,
different
Sean.
show. That's
Yeah.
probably a different part for a different show.
Yep.
But I still think he's gone.
What I find interesting, and I agree with you, Sean. I think ultimately he gets traded. I just don't know when. Maybe it's a deadline deal. Maybe it's some point in the season. But what's interesting is all the rumors of that just went completely quiet, which makes me think they're actually working on a trade. Because when you
Yes,
stop
right,
talking about it,
'cause
it's when
that
you
means
do it.
something's happening. Yes. Yep.
So-
I think
Yep,
they're
I
kind of
agree.
waiting to see because he just got cleared for activity
Yeah.
last week. So I think they're waiting to see how he comes back, how he looks, and then they'll be like, kind of like a deal's already on the table, and they're like, "Hey,
Yeah.
bud,
'Cause-
thanks, but you're going to New York."
When is he back? He's not
I-
technically back until like May, is he?
May, I think it's like the middle or end of May. I think is
Okay.
when his suspension's up
So New York is the
because the
one for me
playoff
that
games
makes it.
counted towards his
Oh yeah.
towards
Right.
his suspension.
So the Sussy. I think New York to me makes sense. Nick, when you said New York, do you mean Mets or Yankees?
Yes,
I think
I-
I think the
I'm
Mets
thinking
make a little
Yankees.
bit of sense. I
It'll be
think the Mets make
Yankees.
a little bit of sense.
I mean, why not?
The
Honor
hard
for
part
the
is where do you put him?
problem-
Because you're not going to. Lindor's on a 10-year, $340 million contract.
No. The problem you have is will he play third base? And if he'll
Oh.
play third base, the Mets make a little bit of sense. But the problem with that is if you absorb the whole, like, I don't know what the outs of the contract are. You like Brett Beatty. Like, you like him.
Right.
So you're
Yep,
not
yeah.
going to put someone there for 6 years if Brett Beatty can't play.
Yeah, right.
I think he goes to the Bronx. They don't have
So
a shortstop.
True.
That's
think-
that's where
I
he
think
goes.
that would be, as a Red Sox fan, I would love that because I think it would be one of those like nitrogen bombs where like if he goes into that locker room, it just absorbs itself and just like where's the Yankees just don't exist anymore. He would
Right.
eat that locker room alive.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the issue is that the Yankees have two legitimate shortstop prospects they like in Volpe and Peraza. They're going to have to believe that one of those guys is going somewhere else positionally. They're going to go play somewhere else to make room for a Tatis because they do have a couple of young players that,
Or they send him to San Diego.
or the other prospects they deal.
Well,
But
that's dumb. That's dumb.
Well, I
This
agree
guy,
too, but
this guy has
Well, yeah,
proven,
these are major league
this
ready
guy
guys.
has proven time and time again. He's fine. He's major league ready, but he's proven time and time
No,
again
actually-
you can't count on him.
no, I in that case, I hope the Yankees trade away all their top prospects and bring
Yes.
them to town. Because to your point, it's
Yes.
it's the bomb in the middle of New York that
Right.
yeah.
screws it
It's
all up.
unbelievable.
All right, we'll move on from Tatis there. Trey Mancini to the Cubs for 2
I
years.
Break up.
love this move.
Boys,
This is
boys.
great.
The Cubs have sneaky been maybe the best team in free agency this year. This best offseason team.
I agree.
Yeah.
They might have
They've
just
been
moved into
fantastic.
second place in the NL Central right here.
They're a lot
They've
closer
been
to good than we
fantastic.
thought.
Yep. They're going to be a fun team to watch this year. They've been fantastic.
They're
Well,
young kids, Rafael Ortega. They have Frank Schwindel. Like, I mean, their young
Mhm.
kids coming up are legit. You add a couple of
But they
these
got-
veteran pieces. You got Dansby Swanson. I mean, come on.
Eric
now.
Hosmer. Eric Hosmer
Yeah.
was great.
Yep.
Eric Hosmer was
Yeah.
a great, like that was to me was a fantastic sign for them.
You're just gonna platoon those two, Mancini and
Yep.
Hosmer, with like the professional hitters that both
So-
of them are.
Mhm.
Like absolutely amazing.
So follow
great.
me for a second. So the Chicago Cubs projected starting lineup right now is
Yep.
you're going to lead off with Nico Horner. Then you're going to go to
Oh.
Dansby Swanson. You're going to go to Ian Happ, Seiya Suzuki, Eric Hosmer, Trey Mancini, Cody Bellinger, Christopher Morel, who was a hell of a breakout player this
Morel,
year,
yeah.
and then Tucker Barnhart behind the plate. That is a lineup that is going to win a lot more games than I think we give them credit for, because
Absolutely.
it is balanced, it is young, it's got some good experience around it. They're going to be fun to watch.
And Tucker Barnhart is a guy I don't think gets enough credit for his offensive ability because he spent most of his career in Cincinnati, and people are like, who's
Yep.
Tucker Barnhart? This guy can hit. He's a consistently
He can.
good hitter. Is he going to
He
hit
can.
30 home runs? No.
No.
Is he going to drive in 100 RBIs? No. But he's a catcher, and
Oh,
he
well-
shows up every day, and he's consistent. He's a 265 hitter every day.
Yeah, name me a catcher in the league that does anything that you just said, anyways.
Well, true.
I mean-
right.
I mean, the guy. So here's a guy, 9-year vet. He's gonna hit 250 with 10, his career stat line over 9 years. He's gonna be a 245 hitter with 10 and 54, and play
Did
really
he have
good
a stint
defense
with the
behind
Red
plate.
Sox? He
Barnhart,
had a
no.
stint with. He didn't. For some
No,
reason,
I
I
don't
thought
It's
he
been
did.
it was
I don't know.
Cincinnati. He was in Detroit last year for
Detroit.
less than 100 games. Then he's a free agent. So, but
Yeah.
the guy's won 2 Gold Gloves and can hit a little bit. So that's all you're gonna ask for.
Yeah. And then finally, the one that I got right here is Adam Duvall is linked to the Red Sox right now.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
what it does is it gives you a depth outfield piece and moves
Yep.
Kike Hernandez to short. Is kind of what it does. I mean, what else are you gonna do if you're the Red Sox? Who else are you gonna put at short? Nick Arno ain't walking through that door.
Oh,
You
thank
know?
God! My goodness.
But yeah, I mean, what are the Reds like realistically? What do the Red Sox do at shortstop? Is it sign an outfield piece and move Kike there, or
Well,
is it to find a Josh Harrison or a Elvis Andrus out
I
there?
actually like the idea of Elvis Andrus, a veteran president.
I do
a guy who can still play. That won't cost
I
you a
do
lot
too.
of money, and I hate the idea of moving Kike into the infield because that completely screws up
I do
that whole
too.
outfield
I-
rotation.
I-
So, Adam Duvall, sure. I think I'd rather have Elvis Andrus on a 1-year contract, and he's the bridge to get back to Trevor Story.
Right. I agree 100% with Harrison. I think Elvis Andrus is you know what he is for his career. He's been in Oakland, he's been in Texas, he's everywhere he's been. He's the guy that hits 240, he hits 250. Is he going to win you a Gold Glove? No, but he'll do enough defensively. But he shows up every day. He's fine. He's solid. And I know it's not great, but in a pinch last minute, I'll take that over Kike. I
Yes,
want Kike in
agreed.
the outfield. We know what he is at center. We know what he means to this outfield rotation. That matters. I'll take Elvis Andrus at center. I mean, at short. I'll
Last
take it.
year,
Hear me
Elvis
out.
Andrus split time with Oakland, Chicago. The guy hit 249 with 17 home runs, 58 RBIs, and played slightly better than average defense. For a 1-year contract, bring him in.
Let's
do it.
It's what it is.
Honestly, his numbers aren't that far off of Trevor Story's. I hate to say it, but
Yeah, which is crazy. I know. Which is yeah. I know.
Or
unfortunately.
we
but-
have Bobby Dahlbach, who did make a start at short last year.
Well, did you see that Bobby Dahlbeck's
Oh.
considering switching back to the mound to try to extend his career?
Really?
He was a pitcher all the way through. Alex Cora first met Dahlbeck as a college pitcher throwing high 90s cheese.
Well, he could start for us on the mound.
It sounds. I mean, he could probably be in the bullpen tomorrow at a minimum.
Man, I
All
don't
right, so
know.
we're just going off the tracks here. Let me ask you. I mean, if we're off the tracks, we're off the tracks.
Let's
I mean,
go.
if we're-
Right, let's go. Let's see it.
We've talked about it in the text. We know Miami likes Cassis, right? That was a thing we've heard. It's been confirmed. Miami likes Cassis.
Yeah.
and we had our ranked Miami pitchers. We know, Alcantara's off limits. And Nick, you said Pablo Lopez is your number 2, right, on that list?
I think Pablo Lopez is 2. Yeah.
Outside of Eddie Cabrera?
I think it's Pablo
Eddie-
Lopez, then
or-
Cabrera.
Yeah.
Then
So
Cabrera.
They're
it's
close.
Alcantara, Lopez, Cabrera, Sanchez, Rogers.
Okay. So
Okay. Yep.
I have your list, except I have those flipped. I think I would like, outside of Alcantara, which we know is untouchable. Eddie Cabrera to me is disgusting. 24 years old, arm talent, he's another guy like Pedro,
Yep.
arm talent.
Right.
But think about the years of control you would have. He would be a guy to me that would be worth giving up Tristan Casas for.
Yeah, it's fair.
Well, yeah. If you're going to
And
give up Casas, you want somebody who's going to be here for a while. You're not
Yeah,
looking for a rental.
absolutely. Absolutely.
But it also works on the Miami end.
Mhm.
It works on the Miami end. If you're giving up Cabrera, you want a guy that you're going to have years of control. Like Casas is that guy. Years of control, cornerstone bat, hometown guy. Like it works on both sides.
Yeah.
Like make it happen. Let's go.
I think the only reason I put Pablo Lopez 2 is because he was on the trade block last year. So I have a feeling that he has more of a chance of getting moved than Cabrera or Sanchez. Personally, that's
Yeah.
just how I kind of
That's
look
fair.
at it.
That's fair.
But I mean, either way, I would be happy with any of them, to be completely honest. But I mean,
Well-
losing Casas hurts.
I just
matter how
can't
you
believe
slice it.
the
It does.
arms the Marlins have assembled down there. Like it's
Dude,
foolish.
it's so bad.
It's crazy.
It's so bad, but good. But like bad.
foolish.
It's so bad. Like, how do you do that?
Oh my god.
Crazy. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if the Red Sox actually pull the trigger on that deal. It's really hard to send Casas, especially what he showed when he came up at the end of last year. It's like this kid's got major league superstar potential, and it's hard to watch that walk out the door.
Fair.
Yeah.
It's like Jeff
But if
Bagwell all
you
over
can
again.
trade it,
Yeah,
but if you trade it, guy that has major league Pedro
Yeah.
potential, like
Yeah, if 2 years from
I
now
get it.
Tristan Casas is hitting 30 with 330 and 100, 300 with 30 and 100, and you've got name one of those pitchers who's winning 17 games, do you care? Probably not.
probably not.
no, I mean, I agree.
You probably don't. It's. I think it's one of those trades. I think that, obviously there's other things to be worked out, but it could work out for both sides.
Yeah, the
I
only
don't know,
the
we'll
only
see.
way the Red Sox make that move is if they get back one of those young guys they can have under control for a bunch of years, because they're back
Yes.
into the whole, building a sustainable contender and all this stuff, which is the reason they dumped Hosmer. Although Hosmer cost them nothing because the Padres were eating his contract, they dumped him to make room for the young kids to let that play out.
Yeah, and find a way to get rid of Sale on that deal too. But anyways,
Who?
Don't be surprised. I'll just say this and then we'll move on. I know we're 29 minutes in.
Yeah.
Don't be surprised. We've said it here. Sean Bogue said it on January 16th. Don't be surprised if Chris Sale has a year where everyone looks in July and they're like, oh, Chris Sale's pretty good.
Yeah.
I think Chris Sale has some innings left in him.
He
I think
does.
he's got the fire under his ball bag for it. And I think he has that mentality where it's just like, I'm going to prove everyone wrong. And that's a Chris Sale that I like.
yeah,
Do I think he's going to win the Cy Young? No. But don't be surprised if he has a year where it's like, oh, Chris Sale won 15 games.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, I'm with
Okay.
you, Sean. The only comfort I have with Chris Sale is the fact that this guy had Tommy John a couple years ago, and he missed most of last year due to stupid, fluky stuff. Like it wasn't like he's got
Right.
more arm problems. Like the arm was fine. It was stupid, fluky stuff.
So I actually bought him a
And he's
Peloton
got
for
that-
Christmas.
he's got
so
that
he's got
fire.
that. I bought him a Peloton for Christmas, and
Yeah.
I'm paying for the monthly subscription.
So you're gonna get a Chris Sale coming back that is actually fresh. He doesn't have any lingering arm injuries, and he's pissed and he's out to prove himself. And that's a guy that
agree.
could easily. You're right.
Yeah.
He could go out and win 15, 16, 17 games next year and be the Chris Sale of old, because he's been robbed the
Right.
last 2 years because of Tommy John and then just some silly stuff that really screwed up his season.
crazy. Yeah, line drive off the finger, and then a bike accident that sent him flying.
just-
off
And
the
a bike
hill.
accident.
And none,
Which is
and
great.
none of it was related to
Such a
like elbow or
ridiculous
shoulder.
thing.
Like that's the thing. Like it's nothing major. It was just
Right.
stupid stuff.
Yeah. All right. we are going to move on from our hot stove and move to the 5th inning, where we have been ranking our best pitchers per pitch. This week, we're focusing on knuckleballs. Since there aren't a ton of knuckleballers to choose from, I want you to rank your top 3 knuckleballers in the order that you would want them to take the hill. So your number 1, your number 2, your number 3. Who would like to go first?
Well, I think we're going to have the same 3. I think it's going to be the order that changes.
Yeah, it will be the order that changes, obviously. But
Nick, you go first.
All right, I'll go
No,
first.
no, you go. You go.
Okay. All right. I got Phil Niekro as my number 1. He has 300 wins. He's 3,300 strikeouts. And his WAR was through the roof if you compare him to the other knuckleballers here. Number 2 for me is Timmy Wakefield. A little bit of Red Sox bias there, but I think knuckleball and Tim Wakefield's the first name that pops into my head. He's number 2. Yep. And then Charlie Huff is number 3 for me. Like growing up, watching the Braves, I would see Charlie Huff come out in the Florida Marlins uniforms in his last couple of years of his career, and watch him throw the knuckleball. So those are my top 3 in that order.
Yep, good ones, all good ones.
Sorry, R.A. Dickey.
Well, yeah, right. I have RA in mine.
All right, go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, no, I have Tim Wakefield 1, which statistics definitely back up Phil Niekro for being number 1. But when I think knuckleball, I think Tim Wakefield, the guy I grew up on, and he did it in an era where everyone was teeing off on slow balls. Oh, you hang a curveball, you hang a slider, you hang a changeup, you hang a slow ball, and I'm going to hammer it. Mm-hmm. And he did nothing but throw slow balls and did actually pretty well. I mean, his ERA was a little over 4, so it wasn't great, but he had like a 1.3 whip, which is what you'd think for a knuckleball guy. Like
come to find out, they all had a 1.3 whip.
Yeah, they were all right there, right?
Niekro was a 1.268.
Yeah, I mean, you walk a lot of guys. It's just the nature of that pitch,
right?
But to me, like to do it for as long as he did, and he had 30 saves, 40 saves, 44 saves, something like. So he had a stint where he was in the back end of the bullpen. Yeah. So Tim Wakefield to me was number 1. Which put Phil Niekro number 2. And then number 3 was R.A. Dickey. And I know he didn't do it for as long, but the guy did win a Cy Young. So for all we can say it was a fluke Cy Young, and which I kind of fall on that side. I think it was a bit of a fluke Cy Young too, but it was a Cy Young. Banners fly forever, and he won it. So you got to give it to him. So he's my 3rd.
Yeah, good one.
And he threw the hardest one, right? Didn't he throw it like at 72 to 74 miles
by
an hour?
far the hardest one, by far the hardest one. Yeah.
Well, and he got a lot of interesting move. He got a lot more side to side movement than most of these guys got because he threw it so hard.
But he won the Cy Young in Toronto, right? He won the Cy Young in Toronto, right, as a starter. But he was when he was in Minnesota, he was like a middle relief guy. Like he was a guy that'd bring in the pen to eat innings, and like he did it all. Like he's done every kind of part of pitching. Yeah. Not that should put him over the edge, but he knows what he's doing out there.
Actually, I'm sorry. He won the Cy Young with the Mets the year before he went to Toronto.
Oh shit!
Oh, was it with the Mets?
Yeah, it was with the Mets. It was the year before he went to Toronto. I'm thinking.
And then he cashed in. No. Oh shit! Okay, yeah.
Right. And then he signed the big contract with Toronto.
Yeah, right. I thought it was his first year in Toronto, but obviously you're right.
Yeah, he was 20-6 that season with the Mets.
Damn.
I thought it was Toronto.
And he was still barely over 500 for his career, but anyways.
And that's the thing. Like I think of R.A. Dickey in Toronto, but like he got started with the Mets 10, 11, and 12. He got progressively better. Yep. 12, he won the Cy Young. Then he took the big contract in Toronto and finished off his career where he continued to be good. But he wasn't as good as he was in New York.
Yeah. Who are your 3, Harrison?
So I'm going to mix mine up a little bit so we have some variety. So I'm going to go full homer and pick Tim Wakefield only because I watched what that guy did and how important he was to that Red Sox team for all those years. The guy he 8 innings. And honestly, like I throw his stats out. I've never seen a pitcher lose so many games like 2-1 in my whole life as Tim
Yes.
Wakefield did.
Yep.
That guy, the offense habitually never showed up for him. But the guy, 8 innings, he came out of the bullpen when he was needed. The guy did everything that organization could have ever asked for him, and was so vital to their success. So I'm going full on homer and throwing Tim Wakefield in there. Number 2 is definitely Phil Niekro. Statistically, it's insane what the guy did. A 300 game winner throwing a knuckler. It's insane. And then I'm going to go for my third. I'm going to bring in Charlie Huff, who did it for 25 seasons. At 45, he was still pitching, throwing the knuckleball. He was the opening day starter for the Marlins. He did it for a long, long time. He did it well. Again, another guy statistically that doesn't look as good as some of these power pitchers, but completed a ton of games, stayed in them for a long time. 107 career complete games. Just it's hard to match that. So I'll take him as my third. And then 2 other guys that are worth mentioning that we didn't because honestly none of us saw them. Like it's hard to judge some of these guys who never saw them. Eddie Cicotte, who got stuck in the Black Sox scandal, was one of the turn of the century knuckleball guys who, a sub 2.5 ERA, won over 200 games and got stuck in the Black Sox scandal and had his career cut short because of that. And then Hoyt Wilhelm, another guy with crazy stats, but pitched in the 50s and we never saw him. So there's definitely some interesting guys that have thrown this pitch.
Yeah. Tom Candiotti, Sean and I were talking about Tom Candiotti a little bit before because he was kind of on the list of knuckleballers, but it's just interesting. I mean,
knuckleballers are tough because it's like, in guys that you didn't see, it's hard. Right. I mean, R.A. Dickey's a guy I watched. Tim Wakefield obviously was a guy I watched. It's hard with guys that you're just looking at stats, and stats can tell you most of the story, but it's hard. Especially with knuckleball guys too. It's hard.
And one thing we talked about before we went on the air, the reason that, like for Sean and I, why we put Tim Wakefield number 1 is that Tim Wakefield was throwing the knuckleball in the steroid era with these guys that were dropping and driving and hitting bombs. And, Phil Niekro pitched in the 50s through the 70s or the 70s through the 80s. Hoyt Wilhelm back in the 50s, Eddie Cicotte back turn of the century. He was done in 1920 when he got banned. Wakefield and R.A. Dickey also, they did it through the heart of that power surge in baseball and did it well. And you got to give guys some credit for that with a baseball that launched in smaller ballparks versus these guys early in the 50s and earlier than that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard with the dead ball era. I mean, I probably had a nasty knuckleball when I was throwing a sock across the room too. So it's I don't know. It's really hard to, like you said, you haven't seen him. You don't know what it looked like back then. Like it's really hard to compare those guys.
And here's a good example. Eddie Cicotte pitched from 1905 till he got banned in 1920 because of the Black Sox scandal. The guy won 209 games, struck out almost 1,400 guys, had a 2.38 ERA over 14 seasons, and got his career cut short. But the guy led the American League in wins twice, won an ERA title, and threw a no-hitter in 1917. Impressive. Right. But it's hard to compare that in the dead ball era to what these other guys have done. But those numbers are insane.
Yeah. Crazy.
And he also pitched for the Red Sox for a little while.
Oh, wow. All right. Yeah, so those are our 3. My father-in-law was actually the only one that commented on it, which is funny because I put it out on our Rounding Third page, and he said Niekro, Wilhelm, and then Wakefield were his 3. Yep. So I mean, like we said, it's literally the same 5 guys. It's really the same 5 guys, but just in a different order. That's really
right.
Yeah, just so few guys that have thrown that pitch well for any length of time.
Yeah. All right, we're going to move on to 7th inning stretch here where we are on the AL West for our all-time teams, our all-time rosters per team, and we're in the AL West division. Sorry, it's really hard to say that.
If you guys miss the rosters, they're on the Facebook page. Nick puts them out there every day.
Yep.
Love to hear the feedback on what you think and what you think we missed on.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So are,
I guess.
Although I will say, Sean,
I feel like
you got a little attacked this week. So what for that? Why don't we start
not this
with
week, just in general?
Yeah. Why don't we
in
start
general.
with
You can
Sean's
start with
lineup?
me.
All right, so we'll start with the Oakland A's. So Sean put out
The A's. Well,
this
not
line.
just the A's, because some were Philadelphia A's. So we just
Oh,
said the
right.
A's. organization.
Okay, the Athletics organization.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
And before Brian says anything, Ricky Henderson.
Yes,
I did have
not
Ricky
make it.
Henderson. I had
you
Ricky.
did. Yeah, you have Ricky on there.
Jeez, I was gonna say, what are you guys talking about? I had Ricky.
Do you want me to read the roster, or do you got it right there?
No, I got it.
All right,
I mean,
go
you
ahead.
could read it if you want, but I have it right here.
Go
So
ahead.
I Mickey Cochran, a catcher. I'll say this about catcher and second base. I had a hard time putting guys in who played their whole careers before integration. Like, to me, just in general, it's just a hard. I don't know. It's just not to say they weren't good, not to say they're not deserving, but I was looking for reasons to put someone else, and I just couldn't. with the A's, I just couldn't.
Yeah.
I mean, if I sent a list at second base with Jed Lowry, you guys would have laughed me off this show, which rightfully so. So I just couldn't. But so I had Mickey Cochran at catcher, Jason Giambi at first, Eddie Collins at second, Sal Bando at third, Miguel Tejada at short, which, I don't know if got any feedback. There was a couple of other alternatives. I think Miguel Tejada was great at shortstop for them.
I like the pick. He was so good for them.
Yeah. Ricky Henderson in left, Dave Henderson in center, Reggie Jackson in right, Jimmy Fox at DH for the Philadelphia A's, Catfish Hunter starting pitcher, and Dennis Eckersley out of the pen.
Yeah.
So
the only feedback you got was Mark McGwire over possibly Jason Giambi at first. You can argue both pretty solidly.
Yep.
But
for sure. Absolutely.
And the one thing I mentioned to Sean before we went on was that, like, I know for me, like, I think of McGwire in St. Louis because that's when he put up those insane records, the home runs and all that.
As do I.
And arguably when you look at his stats, he was only in St. Louis for 5 seasons, so it's hard to compare when he had 12 with the A's, but he was actually a better, more productive hitter with the Cardinals than he was with the A's.
Yeah.
And Giambi was all right. So, and this might not make sense to anybody else, but it makes sense in my head. Giambi was a great athletic.
Yes.
And cashed in by signing a big ticket with the Yankees and then continued his career in New York. Mark McGwire was a great prospect in Oakland and then signed a ticket and then became a great player in St. Louis. And that might not be right, but that's like in my brain, that's how it works. And that's why I picked Giambi. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's why Giambi was my pick.
Yeah, I mean, I totally understand that, but McGwire had 50 home runs as a rookie.
I know.
I mean, it's hard.
And the hard part with Oakland, he was in Oakland for 12 years.
Yeah, which is
crazy. Three of those he missed the majority of. Another one he played barely 100 games. He really had like 2 banner seasons in Oakland. He hit 49 home runs and won the Rookie of the Year, and then he won 52 in 96, and then he was gone 2 years later. And then when he got to St. Louis, I mean, the guy hit 70 in 98, 65 in 99, and then it kind of slowly fizzled out. But his batting averages were higher. His OBP was higher. He was arguably, he was in Oakland for 12 years, but he really became Mark McGwire in St. Louis.
And that's what I think of him as. And I know it's probably not fair. And especially for people who are a generation older than me, they're just like, how do you not think of Mark McGwire as an A? But it's like, I don't. Like, I think of him as a Cardinal. Like, that's what he was. He was a Cardinal. And then, like, I see highlights. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. He was an A. But yeah, he hit 50 home runs, but I just don't think of it that way. But I do think I think of Giambi as an A.
Yeah.
Fair.
I'll make 2 more arguments for you, Sean, because I actually agree with you. I think Giambi probably, statistically, maybe Giambi is not the perfect pick, but when you look at Giambi's time there, Giambi was there for 8 years. They were good when he was there. That helps because McGwire played there when they sucked.
Yeah, right.
But Giambi was there for 8 years. He won an MVP. He was on the All-Star team pretty much 3 seasons. Won an MVP there. And in the 8 years he was there, he hit 300, hit 198 home runs, drove in 715. McGwire was there for 12 years, hit 260, 363 home runs, drove in 941. Giambi was a more efficient hitter in the time he was there. McGwire was there a little bit longer, but you could argue that in the impact that Giambi had was bigger than McGwire because the team was good. He won an MVP, and he was the core of that team, where McGwire was just a guy swinging from his heels on a team that was terrible.
And Giambi, and I'm certainly not making the case for either one of them winning a Gold Glove, but Giambi was at least serviceable at first base. Serviceable.
He was better. He was better than that. He was a good first baseman.
No, I mean, he wasn't winning the Gold Glove. He was fine.
Yeah.
I don't look at McGwire and think he was fine at first base.
No.
Defensively.
He was a big dude that took up space.
Right. Yeah.
The other sort of flack that you got was should have been Raleigh Fingers over Dennis Eckersley.
Yeah, which another one I get. This was the pitching.
Flip a coin.
I'm sorry?
I said you can flip a coin with those two. I'd take either one.
Yeah. And even starting pitching and relief pitching was hard because they have such a history.
Yeah.
I went with Eck because I love Eck.
That's fair.
I'm partial to Dennis Eckersley. And I won a Cy Young, so I don't think that's a crazy pick.
No. Absolutely
so
not.
But I get that. I get that feedback.
Yeah.
I get that feedback.
All right. That does it for the A's. We will go on to I had the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim of California of the United States. And this was my lineup right now. I have Benji Molina behind the plate. I have Wally Joyner at first, Bobby Grich at second, Jim Fregosi at short, Troy Gloss at third base, Garrett Anderson in left, Mike Trout in center, Tim Salmon in right, Vlad the Impaler Guerrero as my DH. And I really copped out with this, but I went Nolan Ryan / Chuck Finley, and then Troy Percival is my relief pitcher.
Yeah.
I like Troy Percival.
I do too.
I mean, it's kind
he's
of
a guy.
I mean, Francisco Rodriguez also had 50 some odd saves for them too, but
I like Troy Percival because you forget how good he was, and then you go back and look in the late '90s, he was good. Like he was really good.
Yep.
And and he was good for a while too. K-Rod kind of moved on.
Yep.
Moved on when he could.
But I mean, I did the Nolan Ryan / Chuck Finley because Nolan Ryan's going to be on 8 of our starting pitching, and he only played for 4 teams. But that's just how good Nolan Ryan was. But I mean, Chuck Finley was such a staple for those Angels teams too during that time. Like from the left side, I mean, I think Chuck Finley. I think of the Angels. So, Brian did comment. He said Lance Parrish and Brian Downing. I did look. Downing only caught for a couple of years and played different positions, so he wasn't really like a full-time catcher. Same thing with Parrish, was came over from a different team. So I just felt Benji Molina was just the more of the staple of the catcher position and didn't play anywhere else. That's where I went on that one. Also got flack, obviously, because of Ohtani. Listen, Ohtani hasn't been in the league long enough. My argument is he the best Angels pitcher of all time? Yes or no? No.
No.
Is he the best outfielder or DH of all time right now in Angels history? No.
Not yet.
So therefore, he can't be on the all-time team right now.
Yeah, it's too early. Could he be? Absolutely, he could be.
And that's what I said. I go crazy talent for sure, but not on the all the best of all time. ... Yet he will be. You know, I mean, you just give it some time, give it some years. But yeah. Also, David Eckstein. I actually went back and forth over David Eckstein because he was such a
David Eckstein was my boy. David Eckstein was my boy.
Good. So good. And then also Rod Carew, the back half of his career, he played at first base in the Angels. But like we kind of talked before the show, I think of Rod Carew, I think the Minnesota Twins. That's just at second base. That's all I think.
1,000%.
Personally, it's really hard for me to not put Jim Edmonds on this team, but I mean the outfield's so stacked you can't.
It
You
is.
you can't. I mean, you can't put him over Mike Trout in center. You just can't. I'm sorry. I love Jim Edmonds, but you can't put him over Mike Trout.
So let me ask you this then, Nick. If we didn't do left, center, and right, if we just did top 3 outfielders, would he be on there?
No. I think he's
Still no?
4 or 5. You have Garrett Anderson. You have Tim
Interesting.
Salmon. You have Mike Trout. You have
You would
Vlad
put him.
Guerrero.
I would.
You
See,
have
I would put him over Garrett Anderson.
really.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And I love Garrett Anderson.
Yeah.
But
I mean, Jim Edmonds
I
also
would-
played in the in St. Louis. Garrett Anderson was straight Angels.
Well, and that is the hard part with some of these.
That's
The Angels have a
true.
lot of guys that were just like passing through for a few years that were really good when
Yeah.
they were there.
but he
Yeah.
wasn't just a few years though. Jim Edmonds was there for a while.
No,
No,
I
Edmonds
get
was
it.
there for a while. You're right.
He wasn't a
I
passer.
don't know. No, I get it, but it might
No,
be
it's
a
fair.
little bit
I'll get-
different than
it's fair.
the position
It's fair.
specific, but I don't know.
It's fair.
Defensively, he's probably the.
Disgusting.
I mean, him and
Disgusting.
Trout are probably 1A, but like
Yeah,
I just,
Edmonds was in Anaheim for 3 seasons and won 2 Gold Gloves. Like,
okay, 3 seasons. That's really
well,
Yeah.
actually 2.5 because he only played 55 games in '99 because he was hurt. So really, he played 2 full seasons, 2 Gold Gloves. The guy hit about 300 and averaged 25 and 85.
and then
2
how many
you're really talking 2 full seasons. He was just kind
right,
of
and then
passing
how
through
many
on his
plays
way
in
Yeah,
somewhere
but
St.
else.
Louis?
It's tough because Garrett Anderson was there for so long. So it's It was,
Yeah.
All right. You talked me into it.
Oh no, I apologize. I'm sorry. He was actually there for 6 seasons. Sorry, I missed.
Jesus.
I missed
is
the
hard.
3. I missed the 3
what the hell
before.
happened?
It switches from California to Anaheim, and I just didn't put the 2 together.
Math is hard. Good Lord.
If they'd stop changing the damn name of the team, I'd be able to keep track of where they are.
Dude, you ain't kidding.
Holy
All right.
crap! I'm like, wait a second. No, he's got those are California. Sorry.
Oh my god, seriously. All right, Harrison, you had the Texas Rangers. Do you want to go?
Yeah. So the Rangers. So I had a couple of similar kind of debates here, and I'll get into them here in a second. But I went with Ivan Rodriguez behind the plate, Rafael Palmeiro at first, Ian Kinsler at second, Adrian Beltre at third. I took Michael Young at shortstop over A-Rod, and that's one people could argue with me on that maybe A-Rod over Michael Young, but Michael Young was like the guy there for so long and critical to that organization, so I picked him. In left field, I took Rusty Greer. Center field, I took Josh Hamilton. Right field, I took Juan Gonzalez. DH was Julio Franco. How many of us imitated Julio Franco playing wiffle ball as kids? And if you said you didn't, you lying.
The answer. Yeah,
I stand in my
We all
kitchen.
did.
Do it. I stand in my kitchen and still imitate Julio
I
Franco.
still do it playing wiffle ball in the backyard.
I get the broom in the kitchen and I'm still
my
like this.
goodness,
dude.
You can't help but wrap it all the way around, man. But
Right?
and then I had on the mound I had Nolan Ryan. Obviously, you think Texas Rangers, think Nolan Ryan, and then reliever I took John Wetland, who was so critical to some big seasons for them. So the debates that I had were, first base. Rafael Palmeiro was there for 5 years twice, kind of beginning and end of his career. A lot of people know him as an Oriole. He was really good in Texas. I took him over like a Mark Teixeira, who was there for a shorter period of time and really spent most of his career in New York. And then shortstop,
Let me ask you this.
Michael
Let
Young
me ask you
over
this real
A-Rod.
quick. You talking about Teixeira?
Yep.
When you think Teixeira, do you think Yankee?
Absolutely, 100%.
I
do?
am with you too.
I do.
Yeah.
Is
I
it
honestly,
crazy
I
that when
forget he was a
think-
Ranger.
Am I a crazy person for thinking Atlanta Brave? Am I a crazy person?
Sort of. Yeah.
Am I nuts?
Yeah, you're nuts.
Because I don't think his numbers are great, but I think he was so young in Atlanta, and I think I hear about like this guy. But Teixeira is great. Like I think it was more about like how good he was supposed to be, and then he wasn't. Like he was great, but not in Atlanta. But I still think of him as an Atlanta Brave. Is that crazy? That's probably crazy.
Well, and I mean it is a little bit because really he was only in Atlanta for a season and a half.
Right, but he was so young.
Right. So he spent his first 4 seasons in Toronto. I'm sorry, Toronto in Texas. Sorry, 4.5. He got traded in 2007 to Atlanta at the trade deadline. So 4.5 years in Texas. And then he was in Atlanta until 2008 when he then went to the Angels for 1 year because he got dealt there. Half a season because he got dealt there. And then he was a Yankee from then on out.
Right.
So it was he
So I'm
spent 8
crazy,
years in New
which I
York,
get.
5 in Texas, 2 in
which I-
Atlanta, one in Anaheim.
I'm totally accepting my craziness, but like I think
Yep.
Atlanta Braves, which is nuts.
Yeah, and he was
Burke-
good in Atlanta
Burke
too, and they thought
agrees.
they were going to keep him.
What's up?
Burke agrees. Yes, you're
Yes,
insane.
You're insane.
Aaron Burke. Shout out to Aaron Burke. Aaron Burke's the best.
I
If you're
love
listening,
it.
if Aaron's
Insane.
listening, you're the best, Aaron.
But
Oh my
no,
God.
I mean, I think of Teixeira as a Yankee because I think that's where he had
Same.
some of his better seasons. He was good in Texas, but he's only there for 4.5 years.
That was the second deal that MLB nixed. He was coming to the Red
Yeah,
Sox. MLB
right.
nixed
That's
it,
right.
and then he went to
That's
New
right.
York. So they
That's
did
right.
it to A-Rod, and then they did it to Mark Teixeira back to back, and it was just unbelievable. And we're like, what is going on? So
Yeah.
yeah,
I
Nice.
think, and I will say this, the first one, I'm kind of glad they did it with A-Rod. I don't know if A-Rod would have worked in Boston. Teixeira would have been chef's kiss perfect in Boston. He would have
Yes.
been the perfect first baseman in this city. For that
Yep.
for that team at that time in this city, he would have been perfect.
agree.
Perfect.
You really didn't get any flack for that Texas Rangers team. You did really well
it was
on
a good
that
team.
one. That one's
Good team.
great team. I had the Seattle Mariners. Behind the plate, I had Dan Wilson. At first, I had Alvin Davis. Second base, I had Brett Boone. Shortstop, I had Alex Rodriguez. Third base, Kyle Seager. Left field, Raul Ibanez. Center field, I don't really know who this guy is. Ken Griffey Jr.
course.
I don't really
Yeah.
know. Right field, Ichiro Suzuki. DH, Edgar Martinez. And then Randy Johnson. And then relief pitcher, Jeff Nelson. Now, I went with Nelson. There's a
Ooh.
couple other relievers,
That's a good pick.
Interesting.
but Nelson
Interesting.
led or still has the Mariners record for appearances.
Yeah.
And it's like 500. It's close to 500, I think. So that's why I went there. Stacy, our our patented Seattle Mariners fan,
Expert.
chimed in, and she says Sasaki for best relief pitcher, and I don't disagree with her. Sasaki was
I don't disagree with her
awesome.
either. I don't disagree with
Yeah.
her.
Yep. And then I got flack because of we did this position specific. So naturally, Jay Buhner is left off the list because Ichiro Suzuki is an absolute animal. So Jay Buhner is a close second, but really not a close second compared to Ichiro. But if I go the top three outfielders, he might make the list over Raul Ibanez, but Ibanez is the best left fielder. So,
Although, like we were saying before we went on the air, like I feel like a Raul Ibanez is in like that Bobby Abreu category, somebody who's consistently underappreciated and overlooked. He was good everywhere he went. He made an impact everywhere he went, but people are like, people just don't think of him. Like nobody remembers what he did, but he was a pretty impactful guy no matter where he was.
yeah,
I agree.
absolutely.
And for Jeff Nelson, it's 432 career relief appearances. He did 3
432.
different stints in Seattle.
Yep. So
Yeah, the only
432.
the only other guys that come up, and this is fun because I just like to poke fun at the fact that Seattle Mariners had him, is Edwin Diaz. He was pretty good when he was there.
Yep.
Yeah, he was.
I'm not sure it happened to him. I'm not sure where he went, but I'm sure he's doing all right. And then one guy that I think of too on the reliever is JJ Putz, who was so good for them for a few years.
I had him on there
pitcher.
originally. I did.
So
have
how
him
long
on
was-
there and I was like,
How long was he there?
Who?
Diaz?
JJ Potts.
Oh, JJ Putz.
Oh, he was there
Like,
from
was he there long enough?
2003 to 2008, so 5 years, 6 years.
So he was. Oh wow. Okay. So long enough.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Long enough.
But the problem with him is that he didn't become the closer until 2006. So he was like 3 years as the
Right,
setup guy,
right,
then 3
right.
years as the closer. So it's you don't really see statistically what he did. Whereas Jeff Nelson was like the consistent, steady guy they brought in every high leverage situation to get him out of stuff. And I think Nelson's the right pick. Putz is also an interesting one because he did have an interesting run there.
If I went with my favorite relief pitcher for the Seattle Mariners, it would have been the old Charlie Furbush. But that's a personal connection.
Yeah.
But
We're going full homer on that one.
yeah, right. Brian says he loves the lineups. My only complaint is I feel the stats have been too significant, and his historical significance of the player the franchise is undervalued.
I think
Meaning what?
I mean,
Put that
so
again for me.
he
Put that
thinks, so he thinks that we are taking stats are heavily weighing our decision versus the historical significance of their impact on the team. So he feels like we're stat driven versus how they're pictured in the organization, which
Okay.
I try to do both. But like, again, if we're going position specific and not being like, oh, give me your top 4 infielders. Okay, I can pick 4 shortstops. Like, no, like we want to do it position specific. So, I mean, because they would be different. If you just give me the top 3 outfielders for each team, like I get it. But if you give me the top 3 outfielders,
but it's also for somebody. Let's say at my age, I'm the youngest one in this group. Like outside of the stats, like how do I know how A's fans felt about
Vita Blue,
Smoky Green? Like,
right.
like I don't know. Like I'm just looking
Smoky
at stats.
Green.
Like I don't,
Well, and
Yeah.
I would say that I think
And
in some
it's fair.
cases Brian's
It's a fair
right.
argument. It's a fair argument, but how else do I know? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think in some cases Brian's right. We need something to break a tie or make a decision, so stats become it. But like I look at the example of the Rangers, like I took Michael Young over A-Rod, who statistically was better when he was there, but I took him because of how important Michael Young was to the Rangers for such a long period of time. I think there are situations where where that's the call you have to make, and there's others where, and you're going to see with the Astros, it's basically statistical because this team was so bad for so long. I just picked the guys that had the best stats because a number of these guys are still on the team, and are
like,
important.
And your view of historical significance could be different than my view of historical significance. Like that's what makes baseball so fun. It's like it changed so much over so many generations that even from my generation to Sean's generation, which is 6 years apart, like not even, like baseball's different. I view baseball differently than Sean does. Like I view baseball differently than you do, Harrison, and we're the same age. Like, so it's just that's what makes baseball amazing. Like we can say, I mean, obviously we sit here and talk about it for an hour and a half every week because we love it and we love talking about the differences of that stuff, like that's what it is.
Yeah. And I think, and I think to Brian's point,
boys,
I
gotta hold on real quick. I got a blood sugar situation. So you just give me 2 seconds and I'll be back, Nick, in like 2 minutes.
You're good.
We'll jump to my lineup next anyways. But like, so I think Brian's right. There are cases where we have to go with stats because, I'm not a big Oakland Athletics fan, and you know what? And Mark McGwire, I don't think of Mark McGwire as an Oakland Athletic because the team was good when he was young and he wasn't as good.
Yeah.
And I think of him as a Cardinal because his numbers in St. Louis are almost as good in only 5 seasons as they were in Oakland in 12. Was he important to that organization? Maybe, but I'm not an A's fan. When I think of Mark McGwire, was he an Oakland Athletic? Yeah, he was a young kid that hit home runs. The team was good his first few years, and then they were terrible after that. I just don't think of him as being that impactful in Oakland because they were good when he wasn't. And then as he got better, the team was terrible. Yeah. But could he be the right choice for probably half of people? He's probably the first base choice.
It's going to be interesting to see how the views of baseball changes in the next 50 years because you think about the 80s, like we had almost zero access to baseball on the West Coast.
Yep.
It was all hearsay. It was all news clips. Like you rarely probably got to see Mark McGwire play in those 12 seasons being on the East Coast, right? Now we have access to all these guys. So it's going to be interesting in 50 years how the view of all these guys now, like your Juan Soto's, like, how are they going to be viewed? Because everybody can see them now anytime they want. So it's going to be really interesting.
And for me, Mark McGwire left Oakland when I was 12. Like, I mean, and so like when I was a teenager, like living baseball, he was a Cardinal, setting records. That's what I remember.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I remember seeing him. I remember seeing him come to Fenway. I went to see him, and of course Canseco at the time when I was younger. I went to see those guys. I didn't care about the Athletic because they weren't good.
No, right. All right, and our last lineup for the AL West is the Houston Astros. Do you want to?
Yeah, Astros. This one's actually hard because, like I mentioned, the Astros were really bad for such a long period of time that most of the guys are either very recent or even current, because there's just not a lot of great history in Houston. So behind the plate, I had Brad Ausmus. At first base, I had Jeff Bagwell. Second base, I had Craig Biggio. Third base, I had Alex Bregman. This one killed me. I was such a Ken Caminiti fan growing up. I mean, I
Yeah.
had the glove with the flames on the back when I was playing Babe Ruth ball. And, he was one of my favorite major leaguers at the time, and it killed me not to put him there. But what Alex Bregman has done in like 6 seasons smokes what Caminiti did in the time he was there. It's not even funny.
Yeah.
Shortstop Carlos Correa, not a lot of great shortstops in the history of the Astros. And Correa was really good when he was there, and the team was winning, and he was considered to be the face of the franchise till he wasn't anymore.
Yeah.
Left field, I got Lance Berkman. Center field, I got Cesar Cedeno. Right field, I got Terry Poole. DH, I got Yordan Alvarez. And honestly, statistically, he's only been in the league for a few years, but he's been so big for them. Look at that 3-run home run he hit. And he's just going to continue to mash because he'll be there
He's
for a while.
Wasn't he 24?
Yeah, it's
Right?
stupid.
Or he turns 20. He just turned 25 or something like that. It's silly.
Well, and the other hard part too for the Astros is that they spend a lot of time in the National League, so there's not a lot of DHs to pick from. So
that's true.
Yordan Alvarez was my choice there. Starting pitcher Roy Oswalt. When I think of Houston Astros pitchers, I know some people are going to say Nolan Ryan. Roy Oswalt's numbers blow Nolan Ryan away. Nolan Ryan was not really good in Houston. Roy Oswalt was the guy. Like, he was the guy they went to every time they needed to win. And then relief pitcher is Billy Wagner, and that guy threw absolute smoke.
Yeah.
And I'll say Roy Oswalt. And Roy Oswalt, especially when they weren't great.
Yeah.
Like there were times when they weren't good. There was a long time when they weren't good. But they went to Roy Oswalt and it mattered. It mattered. And he was such a good pitcher on a bad team, a bad franchise. Yeah. So I'm with you on Roy Oswalt.
Yeah, I mean, the guy, he was 143 and 82 with a 3.24 ERA for the Astros over a span of 9.5 seasons because he got dealt.
Give me the win-loss again.
So good.
Give me the win-loss again.
143 and 82.
Jesus, for a shitty team on a shitty team.
Yeah, better than 600 winning percentage with an ERA of 3.25
on a shitty team. Oh.
Yep.
Yeah. So those were our AL West lineups. Next week we will be turning over to the National League, and we'll start in the East. I'm back down to one team, and then you guys will have two. So you'll have to give me those lineups as soon as you got them. Gotcha. We will spin for those after the show. We'll save you guys the riveting wheel of names for another day. But we'll move on to our rounding third question for this week, which we actually got quite a bit of feedback from this. This one was cool. What pitch would you want to be the best known for? So kind of what we've been talking about, like when we've been going through our all-time best pitchers per pitch, like Pedro's changeup, Barry Zito's curveball, like all that stuff. If you were a major league pitcher, what pitch would you want to be best known for? So we had Derek Chambers. He said he's going to go with an obscure one, the Ephus. He wants to be the best Ephus pitcher. And I was like, okay.
I guess.
I love it.
Randy said a knuckle fastball, first of its kind. So I was like, yeah, that's a catcher's nightmare. So like a 90 mile an hour knuckleball.
You remember Mike Mussina's knuckle curve and how nasty that was?
Yep.
Yes. Do I remember? Yes.
Yep. Morgan said he'd pick a circle changeup like Greg Maddux or Pedro. Nick's. Yeah. Oh, go ahead. What?
Go ahead. No. Nope. I'm agreeing with all these. So
gotcha. Nick Fanning said the 12-6 curveball. Jim Britt said curveball. Henry said curveball or a sinker. So that would be good. And then Brian came up with a decent one. He said not a pitch, but he would throw the submarine, like the submarine style pitch.
Oh yeah, I like that.
I mean, that's kind of cool too. And then my buddy Dave Ingram goes, hitting people. I would be known for hitting people on purpose, not on purpose. Hard to tell, but definitely hitting people. So, I mean, but it was fun. We got a lot of feedback. And I mean, we kind of talked about it last week, what Sean and I would want. And Harrison, you said curveball, right?
Yeah, I said curveball because there's something just so like, it feels so good to watch a grown man buckle at a pitch coming at him and then drops over the plate.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. It's pretty awesome when you bust off a 45 mile an hour curveball and you can make somebody's knees buckle like that. It's pretty cool. I mean, I threw so slow that like they'd just be way out in front, which is also just as satisfying when they swing and then they still have time to either like swing again.
Yeah.
But
I'll tell you a great one too is like a nice like hard, and I think Nick, I think we talked about it last week, like a hard, like Roger Clemens splitter, like
yeah,
a hard,
Oh, yeah.
that was mine.
like
Yeah.
one that just
That pitch is
it doesn't die, it dives. Like it's not,
Yeah.
it doesn't just like, you know, like you get splitters that like, oh, the bottom fell out. Like no, and then there's some that just dive like a submarine. Like
Yeah.
those ones. Like you give me
Yeah.
that best splitter.
Right.
Yeah, it's
I-
like
I
a
would-
plane getting shot out of the air. It's just like, and then
Yeah.
just down
Hey.
it goes.
Terrible. But yes, agreed.
Yes.
Yes.
But yeah, comes in waist high and then disappears to the shins. Like you can't
Just
do anything
shoots
with that.
down. Yeah. Right.
And
The only
and
thing you can
just-
do is
you
pound
can't
that
even
into the
tell that
ground.
pitch is coming because the spin on it looks the same.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So yeah, those were pretty fun. Brian says wooden bats with the cutter. Breaking bats would be pretty. I mean, Mariano Rivera had a
Yeah,
whole chair
that's
made out of
that's
broken
great.
bats.
Yep.
I mean,
That's great.
I'm pretty
That's
sure
great.
Mariano Rivera made his first house out of broken bats. I mean, that guy,
Yeah. Right.
that
Huh.
guy, the number of people that were ice in their hands after games where they faced him because he was just breaking off bats and stinging them.
I can't even
Brutal.
imagine, dude. As a hitter, you know it's coming, and you still can't get your barrel on it. Like
Well,
that's
We've talked about it. We've
mind-blowing
taled
to
about
me.
it
It's
100
crazy.
times. But
It's
how
still
fucking
just as crazy.
how awesome must it be to stand on the mound and say, you know what I'm throwing.
Yeah,
I know what I'm throwing. You still have zero chance.
Yeah,
That must be the awesomest feeling in the world.
yeah.
Yeah.
All 35,000 people in the stadium know what I'm throwing, and you still aren't going to hit it.
Like you have zero chance.
Crazy.
Zero.
And
Absolutely not.
for those of you who have never gotten jammed on a wooden bat
Oh,
before,
It's the worst.
oh my god, it hurts. You know,
The
go
worst.
grab a 2x4 at the Home Depot aisle and smash it against the concrete floor and feel that through your hands. It is the worst.
It
Oh my god, it
sucks.
hurts.
Dude, I had a broken bat in men's league, and it didn't break. It broke, but just enough that my hand, because I hit barehanded, it cracked and
Weirdo.
it pinched my skin in between
Oh.
because the wood came back because it didn't break all the way, dude. I had a blood blister for at least
That's
like
the
a
worst.
month and a half, dude. It's crazy.
Mm.
The worst.
But yep, it's a lot of fun. Play baseball, they said. It's fun. It's fun, they say.
It
Anyways,
is
all
fun.
right. We are so we'll throw out a question next week. We haven't come up with it yet, so we will throw that out next week on the Facebook page. But we are going to start heading for home here where we have the latest news. We mentioned earlier that, our second baseman converted to a shortstop is now going under the knife for Tommy John or UCL surgery. I don't think it's officially Tommy John.
It's the step before Tommy John. It's like a lap something surgery that they can do.
It's just Tommy Joe. It's not
Yeah,
quite Tommy John.
exactly. Sean Doolittle of the
Tommy
Nationals
Jack.
got this done last year. So it's supposed to be
Yeah.
half the recovery time. So it's like a 6-month window. And, the Red Sox are saying, oh, we might see him back. We might not see him back, but they're not banking on anything. But at a minimum, I think the earliest you get to see Trevor Story is probably like the end of July, early August.
And that's the same one that Bryce Harper is having, right? I think
I
he's
bel-
having one similar to it.
I believe it's something similar to it.
Yeah. So cool. So Red Sox sign
Yeah.
another free agent and he's hurt forever. So that's cool. Did you
The guy that was
see-
going to fill in for Xander Bogaerts, who just left
I
him.
can't. Comerica Park is moving their fencing and lowering the wall. And I love, if you haven't
Boys.
seen it, Miguel Cabrera tweets out and says, "It's like only took me 17 years of playing here for them to listen to me."
Boys, I've been very vocal on this podcast and then elsewhere about how ridiculous that center field is.
That ball-
so
It's like hitting in Yellowstone.
I-
That ballpark is so big.
I feel like this is a win for me. Like I feel like a personal victory, like a personal win for me that they're moving
Right.
the center field in. It's outrageously big.
Oh,
yeah,
it's insane. It's insane. I mean,
Absolutely
think of the home runs Miguel Cabrera has lost over the years at that ballpark.
Oh,
I mean, how many balls have you seen absolutely tattooed to like left center, right center that are caught in front of the warning track? And you're like, what
Yeah,
happened?
not even on the
we
warning track.
so we played the Sox played there early, like maybe mid-April. So it was like third series of the year, And we got on the show here, and I said that ballpark is where home runs go to die.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
it's outrageous. You could hit a ball on the fucking screws and it dies at the warning track. It's like, what happens there? It makes no sense.
Yeah,
I don't-
340 down the lines, 420 dead center. Dude, it's just crazy. But the lines are staying the same. They're just lowering the
Yeah,
wall.
right. They're just bringing center
But
field.
center
in.
field,
Right.
they're bringing in. They're bringing in
What, 10 feet? Right? Didn't
10
they say
feet.
10
So
feet?
it'll still be
10
410
feet,
to center. It'll still be
Yeah, it's not-
410
Right,
to
which is still a poke.
It's not like it's a
It's
cheap home run
still a
anymore.
poke.
This isn't Yankee Stadium or anything like
Yeah.
that.
Still a poke.
And it's not like we're in Coors Field where the ball travels an extra 55 feet. Like it's
mean,
like, dude,
If anything, Detroit in April,
midsummer.
May, August, like all of it.
Yeah.
It's cold the
So
whole
it's-
year up there.
You only want to play there in June.
It's either cold or the smog just wears the ball down. One of the two.
The
Like,
air is just a lot thicker in Detroit.
Yeah. Also, MLB trade that kind of hurt me that I was hoping was going to happen with the Red Sox and the Marlins was Miguel Rojas to the Dodgers. I was hoping with Story going down that this could be the gateway for the Red Sox to talk to the Marlins and be like, hey, we'll take Miguel Rojas and Cabrera for Sale and Cassis, like boom, straight up, like just like that.
Would have been nice.
And then the Dodgers take him. So cool. Anyways.
Yeah, not what we're hoping for.
Nope. This I found pretty cool. The Nashville Stars are pursuing the MLB team. So an MLB team in Nashville, and they're bringing in Don Mattingly.
Interesting.
So I don't know exactly in what role, but it looks like Nashville could possibly be the next spot for an expansion team. So if that's the case, I'm guessing that they're probably going to bring one into Vegas, right? I mean, if you're gonna expand it 2 more teams, you'd have to even it out, right? You'd have to go 16 and 16.
Yeah.
Ideally,
would.
you'd want to do
Yep.
2 at a time to keep it even. Yes.
So then,
Right.
I would guess,
Go ahead.
I'm just saying, I would guess Vegas and Nashville at this point.
I would like to see Montreal get back in the mix. It's a great sports town, and I know it didn't work, and I know, people are gonna come at me, and I get it. It's deserving, and I wasn't around. I was a little kid, but it's such a good sports town, and the inherent rivalry between Montreal and Toronto is there, and Toronto's good now.
Yeah.
Like Toronto's not a joke. Toronto's good.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it has to be the Expos. It could be totally different. You can make it, but I would like to see Montreal give another shot.
I just
I
think
think
with
that would
that,
be
you'd
awesome.
would just put 2 teams in the East, though, like in the Eastern part. So you'd have to redistrict some teams
True.
to even
Fair.
it out to
Fair.
like East and West.
Fair.
But that's why I was kind of saying Nashville and Vegas. If Nashville
Fair.
falls through, I am
Fair.
all for Raleigh, North Carolina.
Well, and I
Nope.
think
MLB
if you
listen
bring
up.
you bring
Yeah.
Nashville in, you put them in the East, probably move Toronto to the Central, because they're literally sitting above Detroit. You'd have to probably line them up that way.
That's true. And then you would move. Who would you move to the West?
Well, you probably put the West Coast team in the National League in that case.
So you would have, all right, because you'd have one division that has 6 teams, and
Right. So you put
in each
you'd move
league.
the Texas. You'd move the Texas Rangers. I'm sorry,
Right.
wrong league.
Right.
You'd have to based on where the West is, you'd have to find some team like Arizona and shove them in the Central, or you put Vegas in the Central
Oh.
because really they're probably the closest ones to it.
Right.
Or you just have 6 teams in the West in the National League and 6 teams in the Central. It's not going to matter because it's balanced schedule.
True.
So like I don't think the divisions are necessarily going to matter as much with a balanced schedule if you add two more teams.
Well, it only
in
does
each
in the
league.
sense you're still going to have your division winners and all that. Like it's not like you're taking the top 6 teams in the playoffs. You're still going to have that alignment. Where
That's true.
you've got division winners, but I do wonder if Major League Baseball down the road gets away from the division winners and starts to look at more of a top group of teams.
No.
Or
No.
if you have
Don't do
six-
that.
if
Don't
you have-
do that.
Okay, hold on. Hear me out. You have 16 on both sides, right?
Yep.
So now you have a north, west, southeast division. You have 4 divisions in
Like-
each league,
Yeah, like the NFL did.
just like hockey and
Yeah.
NFL.
Yeah.
So you go East, North, West, and South. American League, then you have
Yep.
4 in each division.
Yeah, agreed. But you still should have, like the way football does it. Like if you win your division, you get
Yep.
the whole. Like you should have a
Yeah,
a
absolutely.
reward for winning your division.
Correct.
Agree.
Like
1,000%.
I think regardless of how they do, whether it's 3, whether it's 4 expansion, like you should have a reward for winning. Like that should be the first goal: win your division.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. All right. So we're on the same page.
Yeah, absolutely. I was
the
just
only
trying to
reason-
think of a way to make it even in both leagues by adding one.
Okay.
So
I just
you'd
don't.
have
I don't want to
go-
get away. I just don't want to get away from the fact that like if you win your division, you should. And I get like football has it every now and again. We're like, oh, they were under 500. They don't deserve. They won the division. They
Yep.
won it.
Right.
They get a home game. That's how it works. Like I know you might not like it because they're 7 and 8 or whatever, but you win the division, you get a home game. That's how it works. It
Yep.
should be how it works.
But
There
I,
should be a reward for winning a division.
There absolutely should be. I think the issue is like in the NFL, you still play your division teams twice, and then you fill in against some other alternating group after that. If baseball is going to get to this whole, you play everybody the same amount of times, that division division winner
Agreed.
means something, but not as much as it did before.
Agreed, but agreed. Yep.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
you still have to have some.
But they
It's still going to be that
we
first
should figure
tier,
it
that
out.
first
Yeah,
level,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, I agree.
Well, let's
Yeah.
see how this balanced schedule works first before we start adding teams to the mix here. So,
Yeah.
but I
I'm
just saw
interested,
that.
though. I'm interested.
Yeah, I just saw that report that Mattingly is joining that Nashville Stars team to hopefully get an expansion team in. So, I mean, I would imagine MLB would want to even it out and bring in a new team from each side. So,
Yeah, it makes sense.
and then finally, I have some, I mean, I don't know, it could be exciting news for some, could be not, but 30 AAA ballparks are using the electronic strike zone this year.
I love it.
Do we like it? How do we feel about it? I mean, we've talked
see.
about electric strike zone a little bit. I've seen some horror clips on it, but
Oh yeah. But I've also
I mean,
seen some clips on how it works and the fact that batters can actually appeal a pitch and it's like an instant review and like I
Right.
think there's a lot of good to it. And do I love the idea of taking the human element of the game? No, I don't. But I do like the fact they're actually going to try it at a level of baseball where it's going to actually make an impact.
Right.
And
Agreed.
not in like the random
That's-
independent leagues they shove this stuff normally, but like you're going to put it in AAA baseball and say, okay, does it work? Does it not? What does it do? And at least now put all the conversation to rest and say, hey, we tried it and this is what we learned.
yeah. I mean, it'll be interesting. I mean, I know a lot of people are like against the pitch clock and against this, if you've been to a minor league baseball game and you've seen the pitch clock in person, it really doesn't take away from the game at
No,
all,
it doesn't.
not even a single bit. So like all these baseball purists are like, oh, you're making the bases bigger and you're gonna like, no, like it doesn't change the game at all. It's not like you're out there and you have a 20 by 20 tarp for second base. Like you made it 2 inches bigger on each side, and
Which you
it's
don't even
not
notice.
changing the
You
game.
don't
No,
even notice.
You
You
don't.
don't
No.
notice.
No. And the nice thing is it keeps the game moving. Like the game, you have a lot less of just the standing there, smacking your batting gloves together. Like the guys are getting assigned, getting in, and you keep the game
And
moving.
I'll say this: in the days of Ricky Henderson, I would say you're making it easier for a guy to swipe a bag who's already good. But like, people don't steal bases now, which
No.
I wish they did. Like, I would love to go back, but baseball is going away from that. So, the idea that, oh, you're giving the advantage to the guy on the bases, which maybe you are at times, but it doesn't matter because no one steals bags. Like the greater good, if you want to look at the greater good, like the greater good of the game, it doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't. Yeah,
It doesn't
because
matter.
baseball is like, why would we steal and get the potential out when this guy's just gonna hit a 2-run bomb? Like,
Which no. We hope he hits a 2-run bomb. If he strikes out, oh well, so what?
Exactly.
well, right,
Like,
but
whatever.
but that's the premise of it. They don't want to run into outs when this guy could potentially get into a 2-run bomb. So, I mean, I get it. But yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how the strike zones work in person. I think a lot of people have been ruined by having the K zone
I know.
on TV.
I love it.
Watching.
1000%
We
agree.
love it, but like it has ruined people's
Dude,
take on umpires because this thing doesn't move, and they can see
Dude.
that the ball that is this far outside is a ball. When in person, you're obviously not going to see that. You know, like
dude,
it's
I am not at all trying to take anything away from Greg Maddux, but go back on Twitter, like go on these Twitter accounts and look at like
Yep.
Craig Maddux got a lot of leeway on the inside and
He did.
outside of plates. And he deserved it because he earned it.
a lot.
But
Yep.
he got
That's
he got a lot of leeway.
He did.
And if some of these games that he pitched, this 76 pitch complete game, if he had a K zone on that, people would be like, what the fuck is happening? Like
right.
there were some pitches he got like an inch and a half on the outside corner. It's like what's going on? But it was
Also, he was like-
accepted. People, it's like, well, he's Greg Maddux.
Yeah.
It's fine.
The rumor
gets
was Greg Maddux always got a ball off the plate, like one ball width off the plate, up, down,
Yeah,
in, out, didn't matter.
what he got. Yeah.
if not
Sure.
more, dude. I've seen him take
Oh,
the
yeah.
strike zone like this and pretty much just go boop.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, it's crazy. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
it's nuts. But yeah, I mean, like I said, I think the electronic strike zone has completely ruined the casual baseball fan being like, well, I don't understand why you call that a strike. It's an inch and a half outside. Like, well, yeah, you can
Right.
see that, genius, because there's a box there for you to tell it.
Right.
Guess what? There's not
Right.
a box there floating for the umpire to make that call. Like,
But at the same time, Angel Hernandez can't see it ever, anyways. So,
dude.
although here's a question for you: playoff game, do you want Angel Hernandez behind the plate or a robot?
Robot.
a
Agreed.
robot of Angel Hernandez.
All
Oh,
joking
geez.
aside, though, robot.
Oh yeah, that's
100%.
not even. And it's not even close.
And, the sad part is like it's his performances. It's the 2 or 3 guys that are consistently bad that are making MLB go down this path. If you could get consistent umpiring and the players weren't pissing and moaning about the problems they see,
Yep.
this isn't such a big deal. But you got a few guys that are just so bad that MLB won't deal with. That here we are.
Yep.
Well,
100%
MLB can't deal with. Like Angel Hernandez
Yeah.
has this. They can't deal with it. They're in a spot where they don't have a choice.
Well, yeah, between his whole little suit thing going on and the although
Right. Like
the
don't have a
Umpires
choice.
Association would have moved him out years ago, but MLB waited too long, and now here we are.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see that, but yeah, I don't know. All right, do you guys have anything else before we wrap it up for
Too quick.
tonight?
2 quick items for you boys.
Go.
One is the international signing period opened, and
Mhm.
the San Diego Padres signed a 16-year-old catcher, Ethan Salas, for $5.6 million. And my immediate response was the Padres are even now signing kids to big contracts. Like, this is where we're at with the Padres. But apparently he is like off the charts talented. The Red Sox made a nice move in the international pool as well. But the Padres spent all of their international pool money on this 16-year-old catcher, who is considered to be a massive talent.
He's
but
the
the
guy.
Padres are even
He's
they're
their
even
guy.
they're even throwing big money at kids now.
Dude,
Yeah, he's their guy, though.
5.6
That's okay.
million when
Listen,
you're
if he's your guy,
16.
he's your guy.
Well, and what's interesting is from reading more about it, it sounds like a lot of these international players, they do these handshake deals with these teams, and then they go train with them. That's kind of how they get around some of the rules.
Yeah.
So there are some of the players that were signed in the pool this year that had committed as early as 11 or 12 years old to some of these organizations,
Jesus.
just so they can get access to the training staff and the coaching, so they could continue to develop. Because honestly, that's all they want to do, is they want to get tied to a team and become as good as they possibly can.
Jesus.
And then the second item is Trevor Bauer is now officially a free agent.
Officially.
The Dodgers are on the hook to pay him $22.5 million this year, regardless. So any Major League Baseball team can pick him up right now for $720K. There is going to be somebody that's going to take a chance on this guy.
Minnesota,
for $720K, and I will be curious to see if you get the
Seattle.
Trevor Bauer of old, or if you get a significantly reduced version.
Seattle. Sean, you say Minnesota?
Do it. I mean, it works too well for Minnesota. It makes
Yeah.
too much sense. Do it.
Where do you think he goes, Harrison? Texas?
Boy, where do I think he
Never-
goes?
Yeah.
I think he's going to go to one of those teams probably in the Central that needs pitching help. I could see the Reds. I could see the Indians. I could see the Twins.
Oh, Guardians.
I don't know that he goes to a big market team because they're not going to want the blowback. So I think he
Yeah.
ends up in the AL or NL Central somewhere. Chicago White Sox, somebody who's willing to take a flyer.
Yeah, it's fair.
But like a St. Louis Cardinals, that organization is going to say, nope, don't need the circus that comes with this guy.
And
Yeah.
ironically enough, that would be the perfect place for him.
Totally.
But they
Structure.
won't take him. They won't take him.
Nope. I mean, I don't see the Cubs taking another organization that isn't going to want the circus.
No.
No, they do. No, the Cubs have done enough. The Cubs are just looking and be like, you know what? We've done enough good things. We don't want to undo it all with a bad thing.
Agreed.
Like you know.
Agreed. So it'll be interesting. But
All right.
720K, Trevor Bauer can be yours.
Absolutely. All right. Well, that does it for tonight. Thanks for watching. Thanks for chiming in. We will be on the same time next week, 8 o'clock on Monday. Please like, subscribe, share. Also be on for the lookout for our all-time teams for the NL East. We will throw another best pitch poll question out there for you guys to answer. So a lot of interaction. Baseball is like 70 days away.
Whew.
We're getting there and can't wait. So we will see you
All
guys.
right. So real
all-
quick,
real quick,
Nick.
Sean. Yep.
We're doing NL East. I got to get the Mets, right?
No, we should not give you the Mets intentionally.
No. I got to get the Mets.
All right. Well, we'll see. We'll talk about it after the show. All right.
All right.
So
We'll see.
please like, subscribe, share. We'll see y'all next Monday at 8 p.m.
See you, boys.
All right, guys.